Hey everyone, it's Jack, and recently I started my bi-yearly ranking of every single US Drag Race season. So if you're watching this video in September 2025 before the end of the month, you still have time to do your own ranking of them if you'd like. I'll put it in the description, and there's a form up on my community tab. With all this being said, I don't want to spoil a lot of the seasons that are going to end up lower on the list, but I feel like you can assume which seasons those are. And today I wanted to do a video talking about some of the best episodes of those seasons that are honestly pretty bad. From what I've seen of the episodes that we'll be talking about today, even if a season ultimately doesn't come together or it's just not fun to watch for most of the time, sometimes there are little pieces that are set up on the season that culminate in at least one really good episode. So today, let's talk about some good Drag Race episodes and bad seasons. Make sure you like and subscribe, go follow my Patreon, and let's hop in with one of my favorite episodes of All Stars ever. One of All Stars 5's biggest issues is just how predictable the top 3 is. And honestly, I'd extend it to even the top 4, with me expecting Alexis Mateo to make it there. So when the season plays out exactly how you expect it to, with very little shakeup in how everything's gonna work, it just creates for a boring season that is not really worth a rewatch a lot of the time. The 2 episodes that are the most interesting revolve around eliminations and how there might be a shakeup to who goes home. We have episode 1's talent show, which I think is a great episode. It has some great drama with Derek and India, and Evie oddly went all out with this lip sync assassin twist, which misled us into thinking that every lip sync assassin was gonna try as hard as she did. But for 4 straight episodes after that, the queens did the safest eliminations, gave us very little drama. I don't need drama or crazy eliminations on every single season, but like I said, everything is edited on All Stars 5 to really mislead us into thinking that there's something bigger going on when there really isn't. The biggest example being the tiniest bit of drama that we got with Shay's potential elimination in episode 3. Shay got 2 votes from Alexis Mateo and Mayhem Miller, 2 people who were more so willing to play the game than the rest of the queens. It wasn't really addressed again up until the Snatch Game episode, which kind of was the culmination of the tepid drama that we got on the season. This is the one episode of All Stars 5 that I will always come back to revisit because they cashed in all of their chips here, and it's basically All Stars 5 in a nutshell. And while that's partially a read, I also think this is just a really great episode that showed the potential of what we could have gotten with All Stars 5. Before we get into the voting debacle and Shay's little storyline completion on this episode, I first just want to talk about Snatch Game and the vibes of the episode overall. I go back and forth on whether or not I actually like Snatch Game of Love. All Stars 4, it wasn't great, but All Stars 5 and 6 gave us some of the best performances of any Snatch Game. Alexis Mateo did quite well, and it was hard for her to really volley with anyone in her group because both of them were floundering so bad. But we know the true stars of the Snatch Game are Shay and Jujubee, with each of them giving really great answers and interacting with each other in a really fun way. Overall, I do think Jujubee did the best job in the Snatch Game, with her giving an all-time performance. They showed just how fun the concept could be and how it actually does have some merit over the original Snatch Game. It's a cool way to still do impressions even with less people, and if they're gonna keep doing Snatch Game of Love, I think if they keep it to 3 people per person, that's gonna bring the most success, but any more, like if it's 8 people in a Snatch Game, just do the normal one. I would have said Jujubee should have won the episode if it wasn't for Shay's runway, which I talked about recently. All season long, Shay, the storytellers, the producers, they were kind of dancing around the big topic at hand. When Shay lost the lip sync in season 9, even though she was the biggest contender to win, all because of some rose petals. They mentioned it at the top of the season, but other than that, it wasn't really getting talked about a lot, which made me think that they were saving it for a special moment or maybe a special runway, which is what we got here. She talked about the moment and how much it's affected her and how she's overcome it, and this runway represented her run on season 9 a lot. Like I said, I think this is the moment where she won the season, and overall, this was just a great episode showcasing all of her strengths. Coming back to the vibes of the episode, another reason it's so enjoyable is because RuPaul especially just seems to be having such a good time. For some reason, the Snatch Game of Love format is something that she just seems to really enjoy. A lot of her biggest laughs of all time come from these performances, with especially Jujubee's Eartha Kitt being the biggest one.
Roses are red, violets are blue. Pick me, 'cause I love you. I would sensually walk to the thermostat. Turn up the thermostat to a sensible 74 degrees.
And her enjoyment of the day carries over into the runway and critiques of the episode. This is the episode where she talks about Blair St. Clair's coat moment back on season 10.
On your season, she had on a fur coat, and she walked to the end of the runway, and she went, choo.
It's a secret.
Oh my God. Oh shit, I'm gonna pop something.
And also where she says let go and let God.
Use your gut.
Yeah.
Let go and let God. I was not gonna say that.
Rue's pretty good at phoning it in if she's not in the best mood, but you can really tell when she has her spirits high. What ties the whole episode together though is the twist that they introduce, which on paper and honestly in practice is a really stupid twist, but just for this episode I really did enjoy it. The concept of if you're not in the top, you're in the bottom, which made us have a bottom 5 at top 6 here, which I think is just a little ridiculous. It did however lead to a pretty big bloodbath, especially between India and Alexis. Alexis shouldn't have been anywhere near the bottom, but because she was, India decided to pull out any trick she could. So like I said earlier, Alexis voted for Shay in episode 3 to go home, and after that they kind of just like pushed it aside and didn't really acknowledge it. But India remembered and used that information to try and gain leverage over Alexis and try to stay in the competition, basically saying that Alexis was doing a much bigger campaign to get Shay out and that she just can't be trusted. Alexis strongly denies this, and I think it was really smart of them to not really tell us what the truth is when it was happening. Is it out of the realm of possibility that Alexis did try to campaign to get Shay sent home because Shay was the biggest competition? Absolutely not, but I also don't think India would hold this information in if it actually did happen at the time. That's just not really how Drag Race works. So instead, I think she whipped up a quick, believable lie that was trying to get her to be saved. But like Ms. Cracker said,
India has one of the worst report cards in Drag Race history right now.
Which leads me into my next favorite part of the episode, the voting process, which just randomly is one of the funniest things I've seen on All Stars. Outside of Blair, everyone gets a little quip. Ms. Cracker talking about India's track record, Jujubee also getting a little jab in at India and then doing the shiver thing.
If India is lying, she would have been a better actor, which means she would have been better at Snatch Game. Oh, why not? I'm kidding.
India's extremely melodramatic look into the mirror as she says,
The truth shall set you free. Girl, stop acting a fool.
of course, one of the most quoted lines from the season.
You're a liar, and this is why Derek don't like you.
We got to see every single personality shine here, and it makes me sad because I wish we got more of this on All Stars 5. Then we come back to the main stage, Shay lip syncs against Vanjie, which leads to another really funny moment.
The $10,000 will roll over into next week's tip.
I don't get no fit, no.
But before she leaves, she plants one more seed to make sure that Alexis goes home in the next week, which was slightly upsetting because I do think Alexis could have gone farther. Truly though, a 10 out of 10 in so many different ways. The performances were great, the vibes were great, but especially in a season that was so extremely predictable all the way through. Having just a little uncertainty of who was gonna go home this episode was really nice to see. Another episode of Drag Race that I think has a pretty good payoff to a mind-numbingly boring opening would be the RuPaul Hallmark channel on season 13. I know people do like this episode, but I don't know how popular it is overall because it is the first acting challenge of the season, which often you can kind of get away with skipping if you don't really want to watch it. But this is finally the first episode of season 13 to have a real elimination. Mind you, this is episode 4. This is also the first time where all of the queens are merged into the workroom together. So I think it's both just a pretty great episode and also a return to form from whatever they were doing on season 13 in the beginning. We see the immediate rise and domination of Simone on this episode. From owning her performance in the challenge in a way that basically no one else could, to having one of the coolest defining runways of the season. Like, it was pretty clear from this point on that she was gonna at least be a frontrunner, if not win the entire season. There's also the payoff to Elliott being eliminated 50 times in the first episode. It's not as grand as it could have been, it's no Revenge of the Queens, but it wasn't unsatisfying, and to see all of that build up for the first 3 weeks, I'm just glad that we finally got a conclusion. As far as writing goes with some of these acting challenges, I think this is up there with some of the most entertaining. Is the script laugh out loud hilarious? No, but like I said, people like Simone made it into their own and made it something worth rewatching. Even with all of this being said, I still don't think the episode ages as good as it could, because there's a couple storylines that are set up here that don't really turn into anything. There's the continuation of the Tina versus Rose storyline, which they were trying to push but never really got off the ground. The Elliott stuff doesn't really go anywhere after this episode, but there's enough substance with the storylines in this standalone episode to make it entertaining enough for the watch through. We also get one of my favorite runways of all time from one of the most consistent runway casts out there. The Trains runway is absolutely incredible, with some of the safe looks being still top tier. I always think about Utica or Olivia Lux, like those are great looks. While the quality of the performances or the storylines on the season faltered in one way or another, the runways overall never disappointed, and that's only something that a couple seasons can say. Simone's rise in this episode, after being kind of subtly edited for the first half, that's always one thing I come back and watch, especially after she did so good on the season. Can y'all guess the other thing that I come back to watch? much. 100% Pure Love happening at a time where basically every single eye was on Drag Race. I truly think it's one of the big reasons that this season got a boost even though it started off pretty rocky. After multiple weeks of tearing up the format and changing the status quo for lip syncs, we were finally back to eliminations where people really needed to fight. Episode 1, there was some sort of fight, but all of the queens were confused what was going on. Here, Denali knew that she was in the bottom, and she knew that she really needed to fight for real so she wouldn't go home. And that's how we ended up with one of the biggest blowout lip sync performances. I think this is a pretty great episode. Still, when comparing it to the rest of Drag Race, it doesn't stack up the most, but comparing it to both the rest of season 13 and other early acting challenges, it's up there with some of the best. I've been talking about season 7 a lot because Trixie and Katya have been talking about season 7 a lot, and I still do think I have more to say. I don't think it's a great season, but it has a great cast, and I think that entire cast was utilized super well in the Conjoined Twins challenge, probably the best makeover from the show. We've seen one queen or a group of queens come back before, but we've never seen an entire cast get reunited halfway through the season. And for them to be back to compete in a challenge together, with one of them making it back into the competition if they win that challenge, I think it's a really great idea that I wish we saw again in some form on a regular season. I always have my thoughts about queens returning to the competition in the same season. We all know that they're never going to win the show, but I do think that for some queens, like Trixie for example, it was great to see her back because I do think she had a lot more to show that we didn't get to see in her first 4 episodes. You can see how all the relationships have developed since episode 1 where they were all last together. Aside from Trixie getting redemption, we also get the start of Violet's redemption, which again, I have some qualms with. It was a lot of tell don't show, and we got that here with Kasha talking about how much Violet has changed, but it's still good to get content about the winner in this episode. This is also the cap off of the Miss Fame How's Your Head storyline, which I guess is way more of a runner than it is a storyline. That did make me realize that everyone was together on the runway, which was really nice to see. This Conjoined Twins episode is a lot like the Lollapaloozas at the end of the seasons that they're doing now. We get to check in with the eliminated queens and get one more little beat with them before they're sent off. We can give some compliments, like Max got one sort of from Michelle, and it just felt so fresh compared to the rest of season 7 that wasn't bad but just felt like it was going through the motions. This was a campy creative challenge that was pretty difficult for the queens to do, but the queens who could overcome it and execute something super well both conceptually and visually, I think they struck absolute gold with this challenge. And it's capped off with the really creative song choice of I Think We're Alone Now, while 4 people are up on stage lip syncing as Conjoined Twins. I love a good lip sync song choice that's cohesive with the rest of the episode, and it helps that it's a classic song with a really entertaining lip sync. It's definitely not the cleanest out there because of them being conjoined, but I think especially Ginger plays into how absurd it is, and ultimately it makes it more enjoyable. I'm definitely cheating with this next entry because I wanted to talk about season 11 because a lot of people don't really like this season. I tend to like it more than people, but at the same time, I can't really pick a certain episode as like my favorite standout. I can, however, pick an Untucked episode that is my favorite Untucked of all time. The Farm Fresh to Runway Untucked on paper should just be another run-of-the-mill Untucked where they're just kind of talking to each other and maybe there's like a video visit, but this was somehow the culmination of frustrations of multiple queens on the season being mad at multiple other queens on the season. For those who don't remember, this is the episode where Plastique gets a lot of special treatment, for lack of a better word. She has a heartfelt talk with RuPaul where she hugs her. Alyssa Edwards, her drag mom, comes in to teach them things on the runway. She gets a message from home from her boyfriend, and then she goes on to win the challenge. Raja O'Hara, seeing all this and being in the bottom both the past weeks and the week that this happened, finally had enough and basically aired her grievances about production to Plastique, and they framed that as an argument, which is really interesting to look at. Raja in some ways was mad at Plastique because she was just getting so much more, but that's not really Plastique's fault, and even Raja knows that, and that's why she kind of steps back right after. But like what they did with Ariel later in the season, they play up this whole confusion factor with Brooklyn. I don't think in the moment Brooklyn really realized what Raja was upset about, so when she heard Raja coming at Plastique, and then immediately after that seeing Raja try to comfort Plastique, I do understand how that could be seen as ridiculous. I also gotta mention Bob's favorite moment of Untucked, where Plastique asks for some answers out of Raja, and then she says, well, I don't really want to talk about that right now. Sugarcane then says, well, you brought it up. And then Raja turns to her, goes, and then just turns back.
Okay.
Well, you brought it up.
Is
turned to Sugarcane and went, anyways, we don't talk about that enough.
Plastique and Raja both know in that moment, though, that Raja isn't mad at Plastique. She's mad at production. This is like the closest we've seen a queen come on a season to overtly calling out production's rigging. Rigging happens every season, but this episode with Plastique, it was pretty blatant what they were setting up. Raja threw a wrench into those long-term plans of Plastique maybe making top 4, and it led to one of the first arguments of the episode, but definitely not the last. Because next we had a fight between Evie and Silky, with Evie being mad at Silky because Silky said Evie should go home home because she was hurt. Evie mostly mad at the fact that Silky was trying to mask her dislike, pretending like she was really concerned and cared about Evie's safety when it was more so she just wanted to see Evie go home. Silky wasn't really trying to defend her answer to Evie, brushing off what Evie said, saying that she's not here for her satisfaction, and then Evie bounces back with,
Girl, and apparently not for the judges either.
What?
Evie got a lot of insane one-liners here that I don't think she stands behind most of them, but I do think of mediocrity and beans a lot.
Hats on the back to mediocrity and beans.
Sasha Velour was safe every week and won.
That's because Sasha Velour was talented.
The Silky and Evie fight happens first, and then Plastique and Raja, and then we come back to Evie with Vanjie saying something. Evie rolls her eyes at that and follows up with what she was saying a while ago about Vanjie. Unbeknownst to Evie, in the beginning of the Untucked episode, Vanjie is actually saying how upset she was that Evie called her out, and if something like that were to happen again, Vanjie would not take it lightly. And so when Evie did call her out again, Vanjie definitely did not hold back, and it's one of those arguments where you can see both sides. I do think overall, Evie was in the right with the situation and what she was saying, and she was already fired up, but I do understand why Vanjie would be upset because it just didn't really feel like the time right after so many arguments just happened. Season 11 is often compared to Bad Girls Club, and I think this is the main example that we can look towards. 3 fights and 1 Untucked episode with multiple different combinations. You can't find that anywhere else other than season 11, and it's all tied together with Brooklyn hiding under the cushions. A complete mess of an episode from just an okay challenge, but it's somehow heightened into something that I rewatch constantly. The last episode I want to talk about comes from All Stars 8, a season that a lot of people don't like and a lot of people don't remember. This is the one episode that I have gone back and watched multiple times just because I do think the challenge is super unique and I think the winning performance is one of the best I've ever seen. It's the Forensic Queens improv challenge, which going in I wasn't expecting to love as much as I did. I think you could also put the Joan Crawford Rusical on this list. The back-to-back episodes hit pretty damn hard. That had some great performances and a really great Rusical and a really shocking elimination with James, but I think seeing Lala win in this improv challenge healed a part of my soul. The episode gives you tonal whiplash in many different ways because the vibes of the workroom are so off. The episode opens with them picking roles and Candy not backing down from the role that she wants, which makes Alexis fold and then start crying about not getting a role. That's not the only reason she was crying, it's also just like the rest of the competition, it's pretty exhausting and I think it was all getting to her and she's just a crier in general. But then immediately after that they start prepping and Kahana says that she wants to quit and Alexis isn't very far behind her. It doesn't really feel great to watch this episode or a lot of All Stars 8 where a lot of the queens want to quit, but when Root comes in and does that impromptu pep talk, it boosted the queen's spirits and I think we got a lot of candid moments in the workroom after that. Something that stuck with me from this episode that just felt very sincere is when Kahana was asking advice from Jimbo on how to do comedy well. Like it could have been prompted, but it still seriously seemed like Kahana was asking for genuine advice. And those types of Drag Race moments are things I really enjoy. And then we get to the challenge, which is much like the All Stars 10 improv challenge, where it seems like there's a good amount of structure going on, but they still are able to improv just enough to make it their own. That's the smartest and most entertaining way that I think they can do it. This end product is so interesting. I love the way that it's shot. It's just something that we haven't seen on the show before. And a lot of these performances are really fun. Like I already touched on Lala giving one of my favorite improv performances from the show. Her character choices and her physical comedy, it is some of the smartest work that I've seen. You immediately know what type of character she is, and she made such strong choices that I could really see this character be on an actual TV show. Something like The Office or Abbott Elementary. Jimbo committed to her role. I think we all expected her to do pretty well, but another standout for me was Jessica Wilde, who on paper had a character that was not really given much, but the way that she chose to do her role was so smart. It played into how everything was being shot in these types of documentaries. She wasn't over the top because she didn't need to be. Her delivery was exactly how they would be in the documentaries, but she was just saying funny things. It's a stellar performance that I want people to really analyze. And then at the end of the episode, we get the About Damn Time lip sync, which again healed another part of me seeing Lala lip sync. I've seen her live, she's incredible. Every single time that I've watched her perform, she just has this joy. And I think that was vitally needed at this point in the competition where so many people were down in the dumps. The part where she does the walk and then at the end where she spins into the split, it always puts a smile on my face, and it's still so shocking that this came from All Stars 8. I don't really seek out this season too much, but I honestly might do a rewatch because I do think there is more to say about it than something like All Stars 9. So if y'all want to see that and maybe talk about a retrospective or something, let me know. I think that's about it for me today though. That was 5 great episodes from bad seasons of Drag Race, and tune in next week because I will do the 5 bad episodes of Drag Race from great seasons. Thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe, follow all of my social medias. I started up a Facebook page because I'm part of their partner program over there, so if you have Facebook and want to support me, that would be great. It's free over there. Thank you so much to all of my tier 2 patrons, and thank you so much to my tier 3 patrons who are always the best episode of their season. Frankie, Jack, Jose, and Steely. I'll see you soon with another video.